She laughed. Not a giggle, not a chuckle. A loud, sharp, dismissive laugh that echoed through the hallway. Right as I stepped out of the bedroom, holding the suit I was going to wear for our anniversary dinner. Her phone was in her hand. She wasn't alone. On the screen, I saw a man, shirtless, holding a glass of wine, with fairy lights behind him. Her thumb rushed to hang up the call, but it was too late. Our eyes met. Her smile vanished. I didn't say a word. I walked past her, set the suit down on the counter, and walked out of the apartment. That was 4 days ago. Since then, I've ignored every call, every knock, every voicemail that started with, "Ellis, wait." Because what am I waiting for? Another excuse? Another fake story about a coworker or a stupid joke? No, I gave her a month. 30 days of me trying, asking, begging for connection. A month of me planning something small, something meaningful, just to feel like I still mattered. She gave me silence, attitude, and now, laughter. Tonight was our anniversary. Instead of dinner, I poured myself a whiskey, sat by the window, and turned my phone off. But I turned it back on just once, around 10 p.m. She called immediately, screaming, furious. "Where are you? You're embarrassing me." I let her talk. Then I answered, "I don't celebrate disrespect." Click. The night after I said, "I don't celebrate disrespect," she didn't come home. Not that I expected her to. But I did expect something. Maybe a note, a confrontation, an apology, even a lie. But no, nothing. Just silence. And suddenly, that silence felt louder than any screaming match we ever had. I spent that night staring at the empty side of our bed. Her pillow was still indented, her hair tie still wrapped around the lamp, her favorite hoodie still tossed over the chair. I didn't touch any of it. It felt like a crime scene, and I didn't want to contaminate the evidence. Around 3 a.m., I cracked. I opened her laptop. I wasn't proud of it, but I needed to see what had taken my wife from me. Needed to know what she was laughing at when I was standing there, dressed like an idiot with hope in my hands. The screen wasn't even password protected. Her email was open. The top message was titled, "You'd look better without him." My stomach dropped. I clicked it. There were photos, screenshots, messages, videos. Not explicit, but emotionally brutal. Dozens of emails between her and someone saved as some guy who apparently knew me only as the roommate. She complained about everything. My cooking, my job, my voice. She even mocked the time I cried after my dad died last year. He sobbed like a child. It was embarrassing. I shut the laptop. That line did more damage than any affair ever could, because I'd been grieving in silence, holding everything in so she wouldn't feel burdened. And all this time, she was laughing at the cracks in me, treating my pain like a punchline. But here's the thing. When someone stops loving you, they rarely say it out loud. They just start loving someone else louder. And that's exactly what she did. The day after I found those emails, I made dinner. Not for her. God, no. I wasn't that naive anymore. I made it for myself. A real dinner. Something complicated. Something that took hours to prepare. I wasn't hungry, but I needed to feel like I still existed in this house. Like something here was still real. I opened a bottle of wine we were supposed to share on our anniversary. Braised the lamb she used to request every year on her birthday. I even lit the candles. Same ones from last year's celebration, untouched in a drawer because we were too tired that night. But as I set the table, across from an empty chair, the entire setup looked like a funeral. Mine. Halfway through pouring the wine, I started laughing. Not because anything was funny, but because it was the first time in weeks I'd felt anything other than humiliation. It was bitter, hysterical, borderline maniacal. The laugh of someone finally accepting they've been holding on to a ghost. That's when the front door opened. She walked in, hair curled, makeup on, perfume thick in the air. Her heels clicked against the hardwood like punctuation marks, each one angrier than the last. She didn't even look surprised to see me. "What is this?" she asked, motioning toward the table like it was offensive. I didn't answer. I just stared at her. Not in rage, not in sorrow, but with the quiet realization that I didn't recognize her anymore. And maybe I hadn't for a while. Then she said something that finally snapped whatever thread I'd been hanging on to. "You're acting insane, Ellis. You're always so dramatic when things don't revolve around you." That's what she thought this was about. Me being dramatic. As if sitting in a dead marriage, ignored for weeks, discovering emotional betrayal wasn't enough of a reason to finally break. So I nodded. Once. Calmly. Then I sat down. Took a bite. Chewed slowly. Swallowed. "You're welcome to join me," I said. "Or you can go back to whoever it is. Either way, I'm done performing for someone who doesn't even clap." She stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. I poured a second glass of wine. She turned and walked out without a word. The door didn't slam. It clicked. And for some reason, that made it worse. After she walked out that night, quietly, almost politely, I didn't cry. I didn't drink. I didn't text anyone. What I did was strange. I started taking notes. I opened the Notes app on my phone and began documenting everything. Not because I needed a record for court or anything like that. No, this was something else. Something almost obsessive. I needed to see it all laid out. I needed to understand how I got from "I do" to "I don't even know who you are anymore." So I wrote, "First missed dinner, April 3rd. Phone flipped face down, April 7th. Password changed, April 12th. Started working late, a lot, April 19th. Stopped wearing ring, April 27th. Anniversary ignored, May 15th. Laughed during video call, May 16th. Door click, not slam, May 17th. It was stupid, but somehow it made me feel sane. Like if I could build the timeline, I could prove to myself this wasn't all in my head. That the collapse of my marriage wasn't because I was dramatic or needy or emotionally exhausting, like she once accused me of in a voice memo I found buried in her deleted files. And here's the thing. I wasn't even looking for proof of cheating anymore. I already knew. I'd seen enough. What I wanted now was clarity. I needed to stop doubting myself. Because living in a house where you're slowly erased, while being told you're imagining it, can do things to your mind. The worst part? She still came home. Not every night, but just enough to keep me wondering. One day she'd vanish. The next, she'd waltz in like nothing had changed. She'd hum in the kitchen, leave her shoes in the hallway, shower and sing off-key, like she used to when we were happy. It was almost cruel, this performance of normalcy, as if she were daring me to bring it up. I didn't. Not at first. I just kept taking notes. Because if I confronted her without proof, she'd gaslight me again. She'd say I was paranoid, say I was being controlling, that I was tracking her life like a stalker. No, this time, I was going to be ready. So when I finally opened her tablet, synced to the same cloud account as her phone, and found the hidden photo album labeled After Hours, I didn't even flinch. There he was again, shirtless, wine glass, hotel robe, same guy, different background, different cities. She wasn't working late. She was flying to him. And I was home, cooking lamb, lighting candles, waiting for someone who had already replaced me months ago. I didn't delete the photos. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because for the first time in weeks, I had something she didn't know about. I had leverage. The funny thing is, once you know the truth, once you really know, it stops hurting. Not because it's less painful, but because the uncertainty is gone. There's something oddly comforting about finally naming the thing that's been haunting you. You stop bleeding, and you start planning. That's where I was when she came home the next night. She was wearing that same long coat she always wore when she wanted to pretend she'd been somewhere innocent. Like it could cover the scent of guilt. She walked into the kitchen, casually tossed her bag on the counter, and opened the fridge. "I'm starving," she said like we were still a couple. Like I hadn't been dissecting every moment of her double life for the past 72 hours. I watched her from the doorway. She pulled out leftovers I'd made. The same meal she once said was too heavy for her. Now she was devouring it like nothing was wrong. I asked her where she'd been. She blinked. Just once. That was the tell. Then she said, "Just drinks with Jenna. You know her." I nodded slowly, careful not to show anything. I already knew she was lying. Jenna had posted photos from her cousin's baby shower that same evening, 500 miles away. But I played dumb. "You two still hang out?" She shrugged. "Sometimes." She needed to vent. I nodded again. I didn't mention the hotel charge I saw in the joint account, or the Uber receipt from the airport, or the email confirmation she forgot to delete from her tablet. I didn't say a word about the guy's name, Ash, in the After Hours folder. Instead, I leaned against the wall and asked, "Did she vent about relationships?" That's when she looked up, just for a second. "No," she said. "It wasn't like that." And that was it. She just kept eating, like nothing happened. I went to bed early that night. Left her in the kitchen. I didn't want to talk. Didn't want to fight. I had what I needed now, the full picture. But something strange happened around midnight. I woke up, and she wasn't in bed. I walked down the hall, half asleep, and saw light spilling from under the bathroom door. And then I heard it, her voice, whispering, low, intimate, laughing softly. She was on the phone, with him. I didn't knock. I didn't barge in. I just stood there and listened, not to the words, but to the sound of the woman I married, talking to someone like he was home, like he was the one who knew her, like I never existed. And that's when I knew this wasn't about saving my marriage anymore. It was about writing my exit. The next morning, I left the house without telling her. No note, no text. I just grabbed my keys, wallet, and a folder of printed screenshots from her after-hours stash and walked out. Not because I had a plan yet, I didn't, but because I needed to know what it felt like to disappear, just for a few hours, to flip the roles, to stop being the one who waited. I drove to a coffee shop downtown, sat by the window, ordered something I didn't even want just to keep the table. Then I opened the folder, spread everything out in front of me like case files. Every hotel receipt, every time-stamped message, every flirty, intimate selfie she sent that man while I was making dinner or folding her laundry. And for the first time since this all began, I didn't feel like the victim. I felt like the observer, like I was outside of the story now, watching it unfold from a distance. And from that vantage point, the truth became clearer. She wasn't confused. She wasn't torn. She wasn't stuck in a phase. She had already moved on. She just didn't have the decency to tell me. I stayed out most of the day, drove around the city, ate lunch by myself, bought a new phone charger just because mine was old. Pointless things, quiet things, but all of it felt like practice, like rehearsing for a solo life I hadn't dared imagine until now. I came back around 8 p.m. The lights were on. Her car was in the driveway. She was inside. And here's the thing. She didn't even notice I'd been gone all day. Not a word. Not a glance. She was curled up on the couch, scrolling her phone, laughing at something I would never be invited into. I stood there in the hallway for a solid minute, staring at her. She never looked up. She had completely edited me out of her world. So I did something petty, something quiet. I walked into our shared office, opened the top drawer, and took the backup hard drive. The one with her entire photo library. All her videos. Her work documents. Everything. I slipped it into my coat pocket. Not because I planned to delete it, but because I wanted her to feel the absence. Just once. I wanted her to wonder what was missing. Because I was done screaming into the void. From now on, I'd speak her language. Silence. The day after I took the hard drive, she asked me where the charger was. Not how was your day? Not why didn't you answer my texts? Not even are we okay? Just the charger. I told her I didn't know. She rolled her eyes and walked past me, muttering something about how I never keep track of anything. I nearly laughed. The irony was suffocating. That night, I stood in the bathroom brushing my teeth while she changed in the bedroom behind me. I could see her reflection in the hallway mirror. She was wearing something new, something she didn't buy with me. She sprayed a perfume I didn't recognize. Not once did she ask if I wanted to come with her. She didn't lie, didn't explain. She just grabbed her keys, checked her makeup, and walked out. But before she reached the door, she turned around and looked straight at me. Not into my eyes. Through them. Like I wasn't there. Like I was just a coat rack in the hallway. That look told me everything. She had already emotionally buried me. Now she was just waiting for the paperwork to catch up. She came back at 2:41 a.m. I know because I was awake. I wasn't waiting for her. I was working, setting up a second bank account, transferring what was legally mine. Quietly, strategically, no rash moves, no revenge, just preparation. Because when the curtain finally dropped, I wasn't going to be the one fumbling for explanations. I watched her from the hallway as she tiptoed in, took off her heels, and scrolled her phone with a smile she hadn't shown me in months. She didn't notice me. She didn't care if I did. And that's when it hit me. She didn't just stop loving me. She had rewritten me, rebranded me. In her mind, I wasn't her husband anymore. I was a roommate, a mistake, a man she tolerated because breaking the lease early would have been too inconvenient. So I stopped trying to understand her and started focusing on my exit. Because the final blow wasn't cheating. It wasn't lies. It wasn't even the fact that she shared her body with someone else. It was the look she gave me before walking out the door. A look that said, "You're already gone." 2 weeks after the last time she looked through me, I left. Not dramatically. Not in the middle of the night. No suitcases dragged across the floor. No confrontation. No final argument. Just one morning, after she left the house, I packed my things, loaded my car, and drove away with my windows down and the air finally feeling real again. I didn't leave a note. I didn't know her one. But I did leave behind the key, the old charger she asked about, and the dinner reservation I had originally booked for our anniversary. Same time, same table. 2 seats. Only this time, I called ahead and had them change the name on the reservation to 1. I went. Alone. And it was the first time in months that I could breathe without checking my tone. The waiter looked confused when I said I wasn't waiting on anyone. I smiled and said, "Not tonight." That night, I sat across from an empty chair that no longer hurt to look at. I ordered what I liked, drank slowly, took my time, and somewhere between the appetizer and dessert, I realized something. I had been holding on to a memory of someone who didn't exist anymore, and maybe, if I'm honest, never really did. The woman I loved, who left notes in my lunch, danced barefoot in the kitchen, cried with me during movies. She had vanished long before the lies. And I had spent too long grieving a version of her that she had already burned to the ground. But now, I was no longer mourning. I was rebuilding. The silence I once feared, now it was freedom. The stillness in my new apartment, peace. And every night since, I've been setting my own table, eating what I want, sleeping when I feel like it, and waking up without that awful question hanging in the air. What did I do wrong this time?